The Assembly will come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, Assemblywoman Bilber Axelrod, Assemblywoman Black,
Here.
Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblywoman Carlton, Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblywoman Dickman,
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran, Assemblyman Ellison, Assemblyman Flores, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Hardy, Assemblywoman Howdiggy, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblywoman Krasner, Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblywoman Martinez, Assemblywoman Marzola, Assemblyman Matthews, Assemblyman MacArthur, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, Assemblywoman Nguyen, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblyman Ortlicker, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Titus, Assemblywoman Tolles, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblyman Watts, Assemblyman Wheeler, Assemblyman Yeager, Assemblywoman Martinez, Speaker Frierson.
Here, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Martinez is absent excused. We have 41 members.
The record shall so reflect there are 41 members present. There is a quorum. The Assembly will please rise for the prayer by Pastor Bruce Henderson, the Airport Road Church of Christ here in Carson City.
Will you bow with me, please? Here we are, Lord, and it's already Thursday. In that time I was waiting, I was curious about that name, Thursday. Evidently, the day is named after the Norse god of thunder, Thor. Now he's viewed as a superhero. Yet today and every day, we begin our session by turning to you, our Creator, our God, our ever-present Father. Please bless our assembly and what we're doing. I pray in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Mr. Speaker.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Chief Clerk and Speaker to make any necessary corrections or additions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I think we need to go into joint session, right? Right. We will come back to order for the purpose of joint session. The Chief Clerk of the Assembly will call the Assembly roll for a joint session. Oh, yeah.
Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, Assemblywoman Bilber Axelrod, Assemblywoman Black,
Here.
Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblywoman Carlton, Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblywoman Dickman,
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran, Assemblyman Ellison, Assemblyman Flores, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Hardy, Assemblywoman Howdiggy, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblywoman Krasner, Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblywoman Martinez, Assemblywoman Marzola, Assemblyman Matthews, Assemblyman MacArthur, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, Assemblywoman Nguyen, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblyman Ortlicker, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Titus, Assemblywoman Toles, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblyman Watts, Assemblyman Wheeler, Assemblyman Yeager, Speaker Frierson.
Here. There is a quorum, and we will now hear a message from Congressman Stephen Horsford. We look forward to hearing his message.
Hello, it's an honor to be with you today. I realize this is the final week of the session and you're busy doing the hard but necessary work to pass meaningful legislation and the state budget for the next 2 years. I want to thank Speaker Frierson and Leader Cannizzaro for inviting me to address this distinguished body. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the elected members and staff of the Nevada Legislature have worked long hours to help our state weather one of the greatest crises in modern history. History will remember that you led when Nevada needed it the most, and I want to thank each of you for your public service. 12 years ago, when I was Senate Majority Leader, Nevada faced another crisis. The 2008 recession had devastated our economy. Just like today, our hospitality and tourism industries were badly hit, and Nevada was suffering a level of economic damage that other states could only fear. Then, just like now, members of the Nevada Legislature worked across the aisle to rebuild stronger than before. With your work and mine in Washington, we can build back better from this pandemic and forge a stronger, fairer future for every Nevada family. During this session of Congress, I'm focused on 3 key priorities. First, crush the coronavirus. Since the COVID-19 vaccine became available to the public, Governor Sisolak and our state and local leaders have worked to quickly open vaccine sites across our state and encourage Nevadans to get their shots. I want to thank the first responders, the Nevada National Guard, health districts, pharmacists, and our entire state for coming together to get every person vaccinated so that we can end this pandemic. In early May, my office announced that more than $2 million from the American Rescue Plan was secured for Nevada to promote vaccine education and outreach. While that money makes a tremendous difference, it's community leadership that ultimately makes the real difference. During a public roundtable conversation I hosted last month, I heard from Pastor Kelsey West of Nehemiah Ministries, and he told me an important story. Pastor West was a coronavirus skeptic. He was skeptical about the virus, and he was skeptical about the vaccine. But then he contracted coronavirus himself. With God's mercy, Pastor West recovered, and that experience made him a vaccine evangelist. Today, he's working with Joe Cato and Clark County leaders on the Back to Life initiative, which works to expand vaccination rates in Black and Latino communities. Alongside other leaders and groups like Erica Aviles with Esta en tus Manos, we have powerful ambassadors for this vaccine all across the state. Their communities trust them, and your constituents trust you. When you tell your constituents that this vaccine is safe and effective, that will make more of a difference than a billboard or a public service announcement ever could. Beyond the vaccine, this past year has shown the urgency to improve our healthcare system. Throughout the pandemic, we've seen countless deaths that could have been prevented with earlier medical intervention. When healthcare is unaffordable and Nevadans need to choose between a $50 copay and putting food on the table, many people will not get the care that they need. The American Rescue Plan, Congress's $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, provides healthcare premium subsidies for marketplace healthcare plans to ensure that Nevada families pay no more than 8.5% of their income in healthcare premiums. Thanks to the powerful advocacy of Nevada's Culinary Union and other labor groups, the plan also includes full COBRA subsidies for workers who have lost their jobs. That's big, and I'm proud that we were able to deliver on health care at a time when our communities needed it the most. In March, I was also proud to announce that my office secured more than $2.7 million for vaccination, primary care, and telemedicine in Nevada's 4th District as part of a $25 million package for healthcare providers across our state. Several weeks ago, I toured one of the funded health centers, First Med Health and Wellness, to learn about their innovative telehealth care practices during the pandemic. Like many other Nevada healthcare providers, First Med has pioneered new ways to deliver physical and mental health care virtually, and I know that many of these practices will expand care far beyond this pandemic. There are a number of members of this body who have been working alongside healthcare experts to expand care for Nevadans, and I want to especially thank Senator Spearman for her leadership in this area. As we work to crush the coronavirus, my second goal for this Congress is to get our economy back on track. Nevada's economy has suffered disproportionately from this pandemic, but help is finally here. The American Rescue Plan allocates about $4 billion to help Nevada's state, county, and local governments get back on track. Recently, the Treasury Department released guidance that gives state and local governments broad latitude in how these funds are to be spent. It is my hope that the funds will be used to keep essential workers on payroll, fund essential shovel-worthy infrastructure projects, and expand social services for those who have been hit the hardest to ensure that no community is left behind in our recovery. The American Rescue Plan also includes more than $1 billion to fully reopen our schools and child care facilities and ensure that parents can return to work safely. Over the last few months, I've been privileged to have the opportunity to work closely with Nevada's own Juliana Urtubey, the National Teacher of the Year. Juliana teaches at Booker Elementary, where my son attended school, and she told me how much her students have struggled with remote and hybrid learning. When Congress was working to pass this education funding, I was thinking of Juliana, of her students, and of a great champion for education, Assemblymember Tyrone Thompson, who worked hard to increase investment in our children and their future. The money from the American Rescue Plan will get all of our children back into in-person learning and address pandemic learning loss, which has taken the heaviest toll on children of color and those in rural communities. With schools and child care facilities fully reopened, Nevada's parents will be able to return to their jobs safely, helping to rebuild the economy. In Nevada, our unique communities need unique economic support. Already, Nevada businesses have received critical aid to keep employees on payroll through the Paycheck Protection Program, which was expanded in the American Rescue Plan. As we worked to pass aid for small businesses, I was proud to work to establish the Restaurant Relief Fund and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program, which is now open for applications. Now, I know that some in this body have expressed concerns about the federal unemployment aid in the American Rescue Plan. But the problem that we're facing is not a problem with unemployment insurance. Nevadans want to work, but they deserve better than jobs that keep their family below the poverty line with no health insurance or no benefits. As we rebuild Nevada's economy, we need to make sure that every hardworking Nevadan can get a good job that pays a living wage. And we need to solve the child care access issues that have prevented so many working families, particularly mothers, from returning to the workforce. One of the most important and often overlooked sections of the American Rescue Plan is the extended and increased child tax credit, which will put an average of $3,100 in the pockets of working families in my district during the pandemic. Half of the child tax credit will be paid monthly between July and December of this year. But, and this is important, Nevadans who are not required to file their taxes will need to use the non-filer tool on irs.gov to qualify. That tool will become available in just the next couple of weeks, and I hope that you will help me spread the word to the families who are most in need. Now, when we're talking about building back better, I want to briefly touch on 5 individual bills that I'm working to pass. First, the Hospitality and Commerce Jobs Recovery Act, which would provide relief to our hospitality and tourism industries. This legislation would keep Nevadans on the job, create new jobs, and increase tourism to the entertainment capital of the world. Second, the Safe Banking Act, which would align state and federal law to ensure that Nevada's cannabis businesses are no longer forced to operate in all cash environments. This legislation works hand in hand with other legislation that I've sponsored to remove cannabis from the Federal Controlled Substances Act and expunge previous marijuana convictions to ensure that yesterday's laws are not punishing today's families. I want to recognize the important work being done on this issue, particularly with AB 158, which allows youth the opportunity to acknowledge mistakes involving cannabis without establishing a police record. Third, the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which would address the use of excessive force by law enforcement and build stronger relationships between police and the communities they serve. Over the last year, our country has seen a national reckoning over the way that people of color are often treated by law enforcement, and the need for change is clear. I want to thank Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe-Moreno and Senator Dina Neal, who have been leaders on issues of racial justice and police accountability during this session in particular. Fourth, the Southern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act, the largest public lands bill in Nevada history, which would protect more than 2 million acres of land from development while ensuring that Nevada's long-term housing and economic development needs continue to be met. This is a bipartisan bill sponsored by the entire Nevada delegation. Fifth, the American Dream and Promise Act, which would create a pathway to citizenship for the thousands of undocumented immigrants who have made Nevada their homes. TPS recipients and dreamers have lived in the shadows for too long, and we must make sure that they have a pathway to citizenship. In the months to come, I will be working to pass these bills, along with the American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan, the 2 major strategic initiatives that President Biden has outlined. The American Jobs Plan would create millions of good-paying jobs while strengthening America's infrastructure and revitalizing our care economy. And the American Families Plan would create tax breaks for working families, provide 4 additional years of free public education to every child, and create a national paid leave program to keep millions of working women from leaving the workforce. These are bold plans that will make sure that Nevada has a strong future, and I'm optimistic about our chances of getting them passed into law. Let me finish by saying this. At the beginning of the new Congress, we saw armed insurrectionists storm the U.S. Capitol. It was shocking and it was unprecedented. And it demonstrated our collective obligation to restore faith in American democracy. Thankfully, Nevada is leading the way. Since the presidential election last November, Republicans and Democrats have united to make clear that our elections were safe, secure, and fair. As other states have worked to restrict access to the ballot box, Nevadans have worked to make it easier for every Nevadan to participate in our democracy. In Nevada, that faith in our democracy has always defined who we are. So thank you to our devoted public servants, our committed citizenry, and the leadership in this body. Our future in Nevada is bright.
Assemblywoman Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Senate and Assembly in joint session extend a vote of thanks to Congressman Stephen Horsford for his timely, able, and constructive message.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the joint session of the Senate and Assembly be dissolved.
You've heard that motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I declare the joint session dissolved. The Assembly will come back to order. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we were in order business 7.
Can we go to order business 4? Reports of
Order
standing
business
committees.
4, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, Committee on Ways and Means, to which will refer to Assembly Bills 492, 493, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back. The recommendation do pass under Committee on Ways and Means, to which was re-referred. Assembly Bill 219 has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back. The recommendation do pass as amended. Maggie Carlton, Chair.
Go to order business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, May 26, 2021. To the Honorable the Assembly. I have the honor to inform your Honorable Body that the Senate on this day passed Assembly Bills 191, 192, 216, 404, and I have the honor to inform your Honorable Body that the Senate on this day passed as amended Senate Bill 386, and I have the honor to inform your Honorable Body that the Senate on this day adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution 13. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Order business 8, motions, resolutions, notices.
Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 13, introduced by Senator Canizaro, Assemblyman Frierson, creates an interim committee to conduct an investigation into matters relating to reapportionment and redistricting in the state of Nevada.
Assemblywoman Miller? Or are we done? Sorry. Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to refer SCR 13 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
Without objection, so referred. We go to order business 9, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills.
Senate Bill 386, introduced by the Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to employment practices requiring certain employers to provide certain employees with written notices containing certain information in the event of a layoff, requiring an employer to retain certain information relating to the laid-off employee, requiring an employer to offer certain job positions to a laid-off employee under certain circumstances, prohibiting an employer from taking certain adverse actions against certain persons, authorizing civil actions and actions by the Labor Commissioner to enforce certain provisions, providing for the severability of certain provisions by a court under certain circumstances, revising certain requirements for regulations relating to public accommodation facilities and SARS-CoV-2, which must be adopted by the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services and providing other matters properly in there too.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 386 be referred to your Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Without objection, so referred. We go to order business 12, general file and third reading.
Mr. Speaker, under order business 8.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I have I move that Senate Bill 423, 425, 429, and 436 be taken from their place on general file and be moved to the top of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Speaker, also under order business number 8, I move that Assembly Bill, nope, that's good for right now.
All right, we'll go back to order business 12, general file and third reading.
Senate Bill 423, introduced by the Committee on Finance. An act relating to taxation of property, requiring the Department of Taxation to retain a commission as compensation for the cost of collecting property taxes on certain property of an interstate or inter-county nature and providing otherwise appropriately thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the chief clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Senate Bill 423?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Any motion to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 6 nays, 1 absent. Excused. Bill MC in the Constitutional majority. I declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Senate Bill 425 introduced by the Committee on Finance. An act relating to supplemental appropriation to the Division of Internal Audits of the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor for an unanticipated shortfall related to payroll and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the chief clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote?
Nay. No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted nay. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Any motion to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 6 nays, 1 absent. Excused. Bill MC in the Constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Senate Bill 429, introduced by the Committee on Finance, an act making a supplemental appropriation to the Office of the Attorney General for a projected shortfall related to extradition costs and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the chief clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Senate Bill 429?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Any more wishing to change their vote? There are 37 ayes, 4 nays, 1 absent. Excused. Bill MC the Constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Senate Bill 436, introduced by the Committee on Finance. An act relating to administrative assessments repealing the prospective expiration of a provision revising the distribution of certain money collected by certain administrative assessments and providing other measures properly thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the chief clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Senate Bill 436?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Any more wishing to change their vote? There are 31 ayes, 10 nays, 1 absent. Excused. Bill MC the Constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Mr. Speaker, under Order Business 8.
Order Business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 493 be taken from its place on general file and be placed to the top of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Back to Order Business 12.
Assembly Bill 493, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to public employees, establishing the maximum allowed salaries for certain state employees, making appropriations from the State General Fund and the State Highway Fund for increases in the salaries of certain employees of the state, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 17, end of Section 17, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 493 establishes the maximum allowable salaries for certain employees not in the classified service of the state. The bill also makes general fund appropriations of $17.1 million and highway fund appropriations of $3.1 million for salary increases for non-classified, classified, and unclassified state employees. For state employees who are not represented by an approved collective bargaining agreement pursuant to NRS 288-515 as of May 25th of 2021, the bill provides funding for a 1% salary increase for fiscal year 2023, effective July 1st of 2022. For state employees organized in the following collective bargaining units as defined in NRS 288-515, Assembly Bill 493 includes funding for a 3% salary increase for FY 2023, effective July the 1st. The different units are, Unit A is labor, maintenance, custodial, and institutional employees. Unit E, professional employees who provide health care. Unit F, employees other than the professional employees who provide health care and personal care. Unit 1, Category 3 peace officers, and Unit K, firefighters. For Category 2 peace officers organized in Unit H, the bill also includes funding for a 2% salary increase, in addition to the 1% salary increase for non-represented state employees in fiscal year 2023, effective July 1st of 2022, as well as one-time bonus payments in July of 22 for personnel who have certain continuous service levels in the state. Assembly Bill 493 authorizes the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Corrections to provide callback pay for unclassified medical positions and pharmacists to perform on-call responsibilities to ensure 24-hour coverage in psychiatric and medical facilities. The bill also authorizes the Gaming Control Board to continue the credential pay plan, which provides up to $5,000 annually for unclassified employees who possess a current Nevada Certified Public Accountant Certificate, a license to practice law, are in a qualified position as an electronic laboratory engineer, and possess a Bachelor's of Science or higher degree in engineering, electronic engineering, or computer science. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the first time this body will be addressing a pay bill that has collective bargaining units encapsulated in it. Everyone knowing where I come from, that makes me very happy. I know that there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and I know there are folks that still have some concerns, but this is our first trip around the block, and every single time an interim comes by, more employees will have an opportunity to become part of a collective bargaining unit and sit down across the table and negotiate fair working conditions and wages and health care benefits for their families. These things have to happen by May the 25th. You'll notice that there are some people that are not included in this bill because those negotiations have not happened. There have been concerns raised in the committee that the 1% is not enough for state employees. Mr. Speaker, I remember standing on this floor in 2017 and having to argue with who I thought were friends to get a 1% pay increase for state employees. And it got very heated, and it was the last evening of the legislature. Of course we all want to do more than 1%. After what they've been through this year, they deserve a lot more than that. But we are in the position we are in. There are bills out there that need to be dealt with. We need to move forward with this. This is the first step in what I have been waiting for a very long time, to have state employees actually have a voice at the table. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition of AB 493. Order of Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order of Business 15.
Mr. Speaker, during testimony on this bill, we heard that people who do not belong to unions are freeloaders. And I would beg to argue that because you don't join a union and they happen to negotiate a cost of living increase or merit salaries or whatever it may be along that line, those hardworking employees of whatever system you're in are not freeloaders. We should not force people to have to join unions to get the best salary they could. So I will be a hard no on this, and I hopefully will have my colleagues a no also.
Any further remarks? Second, Assemblywoman Carlton, and then we'll go to the roll.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to clarify the comments, since that was the statement that I had made. Nevada is a right-to-work state. In the case of my union membership, there was 100 people represented, 99 of them belonged to the union. That one person that didn't got those same benefits because we were a bargaining unit. So they benefited from wage, salary, benefits, working conditions like everybody else did in the bargaining unit. But we have to recognize a fact. We are a right-to-work state. So those people do still get those benefits even if they don't pay their dues. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the room.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 493?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 25 ayes, 16 nays, 1 absent excused. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, if we could go to Order Business 13 to allow our chairs to concur or not concur, and we'll begin with the Chair of Judiciary.
We'll go to Order of Business 13. Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order of Business 13, I have 4 bills I would like to consider. Could we please start with Assembly Bill 32?
We will consider Assembly Bill 32.
Assembly Bill 32, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, and Act relating to motor vehicle supervising provisions relating to the towing or immobilization of the motor vehicle and providing of the most properly laying thereto. I have Amendment 563, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Assemblyman Yeager? Are we looking at the right bill?
Can we get a 1-minute recess, Mr. Speaker?
1 minute recess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 563 to Assembly Bill 32.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved that Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 563 to Assembly Bill 32. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 563 changes must to may in reference to the judge's dismissal of a complaint. It eliminates the requirement to mail notice to the registered owner of a towed vehicle within 24 hours after it was towed, and it requires a signage at a tow facility to include information on legal aid or similar services.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 563 to Assembly Bill 32 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered enrollment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under Order of Business 13, may we please consider Assembly Bill 284?
We will consider Assembly Bill 284.
Assembly Bill 284, introduced by Assemblywoman Martinez, and Act relating to statutory liens, providing a procedure to contest the validity of certain liens on a motor vehicle, requiring that certain additional information be provided in a notice of lien on a motor vehicle, providing for the expiration of a lien on a motor vehicle, and providing of the most properly laying thereto. I have Amendment 496, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 496 to Assembly Bill 284.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 496 to Assembly Bill 284. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment clarifies that a notice of opposition to a lien is to be filed in the jurisdiction where the vehicle is located, and it also tolls the 6-month period after which a lien against a motor vehicle normally expires pending active litigation or an administrative hearing conducted by the Department of Motor Vehicles regarding the lien.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 496 to Assembly Bill 284 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Mr. Speaker, under Order of Business 13, may we please consider Assembly Bill 296?
We will consider Assembly Bill 296.
Assembly Bill 296, introduced by Assemblywoman Wynne, and Act relating to actions concerning persons establishing a civil cause of action to recover damages, reasonable attorney's fees, and costs from a person who disseminates personal identifying information or sensitive information under certain circumstances, authorizing a court to issue a temporary restraining order or a permanent or temporary injunction under certain circumstances, and providing the most appropriately thereto. I have Amendment 660, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 660 to Assembly Bill 296.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 660 to Assembly Bill 296. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment removes mental anguish as a factor regarding liability. It replaces public official with elected official to clarify the scope of the bill. And finally, it adds good faith communication in furtherance of the right to petition or the right to free speech in direct connection with an issue of public concern to list of exceptions for which no cause of action exists.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 660 to Assembly Bill 296 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye. Nay.
Motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly has concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under Order of Business 13, may we please consider Assembly Bill 424?
We will consider Assembly Bill 424.
Assembly Bill 424, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary and Relating Criminal Procedure, authorizing a court to adopt an administrative order relating to pretrial release, requiring a pretrial release hearing to be held within 48 hours after a person has been taken into custody, authorizing a justice of the peace to conduct a pretrial release hearing for a person located in another township and providing other matters properly laying there too. I have Amendment 738 proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 738 to Assembly Bill 424.
Assemblyman Yeager's moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 738 to Assembly Bill 424. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment allows the court to adopt an administrative order relating to the circumstances under which a person may be released pending trial. It requires a pretrial release hearing to be held within 48 hours after a person has been taken into custody, provides for a pretrial release hearing by remote communication by methods other than telephone, allows a justice of the peace to conduct a hearing for a person located in another township, and finally deletes all other provisions of the bill.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 738 to Assembly Bill 424 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye. Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly has concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment. We will stay under Order of Business 13. Are there any chairs that are ready to go? There's Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we please stay under Order of Business 13 for one bill to consider Assembly Bill number 368.
We'll consider Assembly Bill 368.
Assembly Bill 368, introduced by Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, enacting to improvement districts, eliminating the authority to create tourism improvement districts, revising the reporting requirements for the Department of Taxation relating to tourism improvement districts, eliminating the authority to pledge certain proceeds to finance certain projects for the promotion of economic development and tourism in a local improvement district, and providing other measures properly laying there too. I have Amendment 615, proposed by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly do not concur in Senate Amendment number 615 to Assembly Bill number 368.
Assemblywoman Cohen has moved that the Assembly not concur in Senate Amendment 615 to Assembly Bill 368. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 615 eliminates the authority of a city, county, or town in a county whose population is less than 700,000 to finance certain projects for the promotion of economic development and tourism in a local improvement district through the pledge of certain sales and use tax pledges.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly not concurring in Senate Amendment 615 to Assembly Bill 368 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The bill is ordered to the Senate. Go to Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under Order of Business 13, concur, not concur. I'd like to consider three measures, starting with Assembly Bill 146.
We will consider Assembly Bill 146.
Assembly Bill 146, introduced by Assemblywoman Peters, an act relating to water authorizing the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to develop plans, recommendations, and policies to address water pollution resulting from diffuse sources, revising requirements for regulations adopted by the State Environmental Commission relating to water pollution, revising notice requirements relating to regulations adopted by the Commission, revising various provisions relating to the control of water pollution by the Director of the Department, revising requirements relating to the control of diffuse sources of water pollution, requiring the Director to consult or notify Indian tribes of certain actions relating to water pollution, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. I have Amendment 576 proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Thank you. I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 576 to Assembly Bill 146.
Assemblyman Watts has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 576 to Assembly Bill 146. Remarks?
Thank you. The amendment requires the State Environmental Commission, before adopting certain regulations, to consider the economic and technological feasibility of those regulations and any potential costs for a local government to implement such regulations.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 576 to Assembly Bill 146 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly has concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under order of business 13 for the purposes of concur, not concur, may we next consider Assembly Bill 356.
We'll consider Assembly Bill 356.
Assembly Bill 356, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means. An act relating to water, prohibiting with certain exceptions the use of water from the Colorado River to irrigate non-functional turf on certain property, requiring the Board of Directors of the Southern Nevada Water Authority to develop a plan for the removal of non-functional turf on certain property, creating and setting forth the duties of the Non-Functional Turf Removal Advisory Committee, requiring the Legislative Committee on Public Lands to conduct a study concerning water conservation and providing other matters properly relating thereto. I have Amendment 591 proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Thank you. I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 591 to Assembly Bill 356.
Assemblyman Watts has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 591 to Assembly Bill 356. Remarks?
Thank you. The amendment clarifies that the waters of the Colorado River distributed by the Southern Nevada Water Authority or one of its member agencies may not be used to irrigate non-functional turf on any property that's not zoned exclusively for a single-family residence. Further, it expands from 7 to 9 members the Non-Functional Turf Removal Advisory Committee by adding a second member to represent a common interest community and a member who represents a golf course.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 591 to Assembly Bill 356 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly has concurred in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under order of business 13, concur, not concur. Lastly, may we consider Assembly Bill 399.
We'll consider Assembly Bill 399.
Assembly Bill 399, introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, an act relating to eggs, prohibiting certain farm owners or operators of the state from knowingly confining egg hens in certain enclosures, exempting from certain provisions governing the production, sale, and transport of egg farm owners or operators with an annual shell egg production from 3,000 or fewer egg-laying hens under certain circumstances, requiring certain farm owners or operators to obtain an endorsement stating that egg products or shell eggs sold, offered, or exposed for sale or transported for sale within the state are produced by an egg-laying hen housed in an enclosure that is not prohibited, authorizing the State Department of Agriculture to deny, suspend, or revoke such an endorsement for certain causes, providing for an appeal within 10 business days after such an action, prohibiting certain acts related to the sale of egg products and shell eggs, providing that the department or an authorized inspector or agent of the department is entitled to free access during regular hours to the farm, business, or records of certain farm owners or operators, or a business owner or operator to carry out certain inspections, authorizing the state quarantine officer to adopt regulations, providing civil penalty, and providing other matters properly in there too. I have Amendment 668 proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services.
Thank you. I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 668 to Assembly Bill 399.
Assemblyman Watts has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 668 to Assembly Bill 399. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment provides an exception to the provisions of the bill by noting that it does not apply to the production, sale, or transport for sale in this state of shell eggs by a farm owner or operator who has an annual shell egg production from 3,000 or fewer egg-laying hens if all such eggs sold or transported for sale in the state are derived from those egg-laying hens.
Any further remarks? Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the sponsor of this bill. Will this pertain to Bantees, Plymouth Rocks, or Rhode Island Reds?
Thank you for the question. To my colleague from the north, it applies to all such breeds of egg-laying hens.
Regardless of the size or diameter of the eggs, sir, or color?
That is correct. However, it does not apply to roosters.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Those were my exact questions as well. Seeing no further remarks, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 668 to Assembly Bill 399 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we stay in order of business 13 for the purposes of considering Assembly Bill 419.
We will consider Assembly Bill 419.
Assembly Bill 419, introduced by the Committee on Education, an act relating to education establishing various provisions relating to the sponsorship and governance of charter schools, requiring the disclosure of certain information relating to the management of charter schools, setting forth certain requirements for charter schools that have received certain low ratings of performance on the statewide system of accountability for public schools, and providing other means appropriately thereto. I have Amendment 513 proposed by the Senate Committee on Education.
Mr. Speaker, I move the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 513 to Assembly Bill 419.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 513 to Assembly Bill 419. Remarks?
Senate Amendment 540 allows charter school sponsors to use another organization to provide charter school governance training to charter school governing bodies.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 513 to Assembly Bill 419 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment. Go, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Staying under order of business 13 for concur and not concur. For the purpose of considering two measures, we'll start with Assembly Bill 388.
Consider Assembly Bill 388.
Assembly Bill 388, introduced by Assemblyman C.H. Miller and Duran, an act relating to telecommunication service requiring the state treasurer to establish a program to enable voluntary contributions for infrastructure grants for broadband deployment, requiring the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology and the Office of the Governor to establish a program to make infrastructure grants for broadband deployment, requiring the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology to establish a program to encourage deployment of broadband infrastructure in certain communities, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. I have Amendment 560, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 560 to Assembly Bill 388.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 560 to Assembly Bill 388. Remarks?
The amendment deletes the definition of broadband as previously provided. It makes changes to the program for contribution to support broadband access and ensures that contributions from the account from the grant program for broadband infrastructure do not revert to the state general fund. It eliminates the requirement that the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology within the Office of the Governor collect and map broadband speed data by county. It requires OSIT to collaborate with representatives of local governments, providers of broadband or commercial mobile radio services, and interested stakeholders by October 31st, 2021, and create the Broadband Ready Community Certification Program referenced in the bill. And finally, it removes the requirement for local government ordinances as prerequisites for the program and defines the violations for program regulations as descriptive trade practices.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 560 to Assembly Bill 388 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Staying under Order of Business 13 for the consideration of Assembly Bill 412.
We'll consider Assembly Bill 412.
Assembly Bill 412, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to motor vehicles, revising provisions governing fully autonomous vehicles and providing other measures appropriately thereto. I have Amendment 559, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 559 to Assembly Bill 412.
Assemblywoman Monroe-Moreno has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 559 to Assembly Bill 412. Remarks?
This amendment exempts vehicles from certain safety standards that have been granted an exemption from one or more of these standards by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 559 to Assembly Bill 412 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment. Do we have any other order of business 13s, or we can go back to? Oh, Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still under Order of Business 13, I have 3 bills for consideration. If we may start with Assembly Bill 410.
We'll consider Assembly Bill 410.
Assembly Bill 410, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs, an act relating to public works, revising qualifications for entering into a contract with a public body as a construction manager at risk, requiring certain contracts between a public body and a construction manager as agent to be awarded on the basis of competence and qualifications and on the basis of competitive fees, removing the prospective expiration of provisions relating to construction managers at risk and providing the most appropriately thereto. I have Amendment 650, proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment number 650 to Assembly Bill 410.
Assemblyman Flores has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 650 to Assembly Bill 410. Remarks?
Mr. Speaker, Amendment 650 changes from 5 years to 4 years the period of time a construction manager at risk must wait before entering into a contract with a public body after acting as a construction manager agent.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 650 to Assembly Bill 410 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
Mr. Speaker, still under Order of Business 13, may we consider Assembly Bill 52?
We will consider Assembly Bill 52.
Assembly Bill 52, introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, an act relating to public lands, revising the membership and duties of the Land Use Planning Advisory Council, authorizing the removal of certain voting members before the expiration of their term under certain circumstances, requiring the election of a vice chair of the Advisory Council, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. I have Amendment 509, proposed by the Senate Committee on Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment number 509 to Assembly Bill 52.
Assemblyman Flores has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 509 to Assembly Bill 52. Remarks?
Mr. Speaker, the amendment clarifies the additional voting member representing the Nevada Indian Commission is to be nominated by the Commission but appointed by the Governor, the same as the other 17 voting members.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 509 to Assembly Bill 52 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye. Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring in the amendment. The bill is ordered to enrollment.
And Mr. Speaker, still under Order of Business 13, and lastly, may we please consider Assembly Bill 55?
We will consider Assembly Bill 55.
Assembly Bill 55, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs, an act relating to the City of North Las Vegas, providing for the creation, membership, and duties of a charter committee, making certain grammatical and clarifying changes to the charter of the City of North Las Vegas, revising provisions relating to special and emergency meetings of the City Council, revising the procedure for enacting city ordinances, making various changes to the duties of the City Clerk, revising the powers of the City Council relating to animals, revising provisions relating to the removal of the City Attorney, authorizing the city manager and city attorney to take certain legal action for the collection and disposition of certain money and providing other matters properly named thereto. I have Amendment 551 proposed by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 551 to Assembly Bill 55.
Assemblyman Flores has moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 551 to Assembly Bill 55. Remarks?
Mr. Speaker, Amendment 551 adds the language "be the custodian of" to clarify that the city clerk shall keep the corporate seal and be the custodian of all official papers and records of the city.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 551 to Assembly Bill 55 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye. Nay.
The motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly is concurring the amendment. The bill is ordered enrollment. Any other order of business 13s for now? Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can we go to order business 12?
We can go back to order business 12. You have any order business 8?
Yeah, if I could see, thank you, General File. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under order business 8, I move the Assembly Bill 218 be taken from its place on General File and be placed to the top of General File.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We go back to order business 12.
Assembly Bill 219, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager et al., an act relating to criminal justice authorizing the sealing of criminal records after a pardon, requiring the sealing of criminal records under certain circumstances, authorizing the appeal of certain petitions to seal criminal records, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada are represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Are any members of Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Are there any remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 219?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 219?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Mr. Speaker, order business 1.
Order business 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we consider Assemblywoman Titus absent excused?
Assemblywoman Titus, absent excused. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 33 ayes, 7 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill has received the constitutional majority. I declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
1 minute recess.
1 minute recess.
While we're in a 1-minute recess, we've got legislative operations that needs to do an introduction, so we will go ahead and do that.
Hello, everyone. I would like to call the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections to order. Seeing that we have a quorum, the only business before us right now is that we have a bill introduction. So I would like to introduce BDR R1179. This measure designates members of the Assembly as regular and alternate members of the Legislative Commission for the 2021 through 2023 biennium. I will entertain a motion to introduce. I have a motion from Vice Chair Howdigi and a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say, all those that are members of the committee, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Dickman. We hear your vote as well. Anyone opposed? Okay, and with that, the motion passes unanimously. And with that, we are in recess. Legislative Operations and Elections, we are adjourned.
The Assembly will come back to order. Go to order of business 4.
Mr. Speaker, Committee on Ways and Means, to which will re-refer to Assembly Bills 241, 262, inside the similar consideration and begs leave to report the same back the recommendation amended to pass amended, and Committee on Ways and Means, to which will re-refer to Assembly Bills 280, 341 has had the similar consideration and begs leave to report the same back the recommendation amended to pass amended, and your Committee on Ways and Means, to which was re-referred. Assembly Bill 382 has had the similar consideration and begs leave to report the same back the recommendation amended to pass amended, and your Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred. Assembly Bill 486 has had the similar consideration and begs leave to report the same back the recommendation amended to pass amended. Maggie Carlton, Chair.
Go to order business 7.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, May 27, 2021. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform the Honorable Body that the Senate on this day passed as amended. Senate Bill 457, Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Order business 8.
Assembly Resolution 8, introduced by the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, designating certain members of the Assembly as regular and alternate members of the Legislative Commission for the 2021-2023 biennium. Resolved that this resolution becomes effective upon adoption. End of resolution.
Assemblywoman Benita Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Assembly Resolution Number 8.
Assemblywoman Benita Thompson has moved that the Assembly adopt Assembly Resolution Number 8. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This resolution will make the appointments to the Legislative Commission for the 2021-23 biennium.
Thank you. And can we go to order business 1 so that we have Assemblywoman Titus here?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order Business 1, may the record reflect that Assemblywoman Titus is present.
Thank you. Record shall so reflect. Any further remarks? There being none, all those in favor of adopting Assembly Resolution Number 8 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Order to the resolution file. Go to order business 9.
Senate Bill 457, introduced by the Committee on Finance, and activating the State Highway Fund, temporarily increasing the maximum amount of certain proceeds deposited in the State Highway Fund that may be used for the cost of administering the collection of those proceeds and providing other measures for there too. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1.
Assemblywoman Benita Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 457 be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
Without objection, so referred.
Mr. Speaker, under Order Business 8.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 492 be taken from its place on general file and be placed to the top of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll go to order business 12.
Assembly Bill 492, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, and act relating to projects of capital improvement, authorizing certain expenditures by the State Public Works Division of the Department of Administration, levying a property tax to support the Consolidated Fund interest and redemption fund, making appropriations, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 29, end of Section 29, end of bill.
Are the members of Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 492 provides for the implementation of the 2021 Capital Improvement Program as approved by the Money Committees. The bill includes funding in the amount of $413.1 million for the Capital Improvement Program, $75 million to launch the State Infrastructure Bank, and $44 million for resource conservation and preservation programs in the state. The bill includes the following major funding sources to support the programs: $409.5 million in general obligation bonds, $45.7 million in agency funds to support Nevada System of Higher Education, Department of Wildlife and Department of Administration projects, $61.9 million in federal funds for the Office of the Military, Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, Veterans Services, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and Department of Administration and Projects, $14.9 million in state highway funds for the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Safety projects. I will not go through the many list of projects here. I will note that it does authorize the issuance of $75 million in bonds to launch our Nevada State Infrastructure Bank, established under 508.55069, to provide loans and other financial assistance to various units of state and local government for the development, construction, improvement, operation, and ownership of certain transportation facilities, utility infrastructure, in addition to providing financial assistance for shovel-ready projects. Also, I'd like to note the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Bond Program, the $44 million in state obligation bonds will go $20 million to conservation bond programs established through the passage of AB 84 from the 19th session, $12 million for Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, $4 million for cultural centers and historic preservation grant program, and $8 million for the water infrastructure and grant program, and describes how these will all be funded. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is much longer. If anyone would like a copy, I'll be happy to provide it. It delineates all the different projects, but I'm very happy that this is what I consider our jobs bill every year. This is where we build the state back better and we provide well-paying jobs.
Further remarks? Assemblywoman Toles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I rise in support of this measure to fund necessary infrastructure across our state, as well recognizing that this really helps move us forward with higher education, economic development, some very, very much needed repairs and maintenance. So thank you. I urge my colleagues to support.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 492? Assemblywoman Black?
Assemblywoman Benita Thompson, Order of Business 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 1. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Black is absent.
Across our state, as well recognizing that this really helps move it.
Record shall so reflect.
Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 492?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Anyone wishing to change the...
Assemblywoman Black votes no.
We can go to Order of Business 1.
Mr. Speaker, Order of Business 1. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Black is present.
Record shall so reflect.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no.
The no. All right. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 34 ayes, 7 nays, 1 absent. Excused. The bill have received the constitutional majority. Declare pass and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 241, introduced by Assemblywoman Gonzalez, enacting to offenders establishing a credit against the sentence of certain offenders incarcerated during a state of emergency declared due to a communicable or infectious disease and providing other measures appropriate thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Are any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 793, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 793 to Assembly Bill 241.
Assemblywoman Carlton moves Assembly adopt Amendment 793 to Assembly Bill 241. Remarks?
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. In short, this requires the Director of the Department of Corrections to submit a report containing a list of the offenders who have received such credit.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of Assembly adopt Amendment 793 to Assembly Bill 241 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill's ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 262, introduced by Assemblyman Anderson et al., Senators Brooks and Lang, enacting education prohibiting the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada from assessing tuition charges against certain students, prohibiting the Board of Regents from assessing registration fees, fees associated with course enrollment, and laboratory fees against certain students, and providing other measures appropriate thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
On amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 791, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment number 791 to Assembly Bill 262.
Assemblywoman Carlton move the Assembly adopt Amendment 791 to Assembly Bill 262. Remarks?
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. It adds requirements in completing the FAFSA and requires the Board of Regents to prepare and submit an annual report to the Director on how this program is working. Thank you.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 791 of Assembly Bill 262 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 280, introduced by Assemblywoman Peters et al., an act relating to public restrooms requiring places of public accommodation, public buildings and facilities owned by a public body, certain areas leased by or on behalf of a public body, and certain leased areas within a state park to provide a single-stall restroom to the public, to make a single-stall restroom as inclusive as and accessible as possible to a person of any gender identity or expression, revising provisions relating to the signage for such single-stall restrooms, requiring certain governmental entities to include in their building codes, or, if applicable, adopt by ordinance a requirement that certain buildings and facilities used by the public that contain a single-stall restroom which is available to the public be as inclusive as and accessible as possible to a person of any gender identity or expression, and prohibiting certain signage on such restrooms, for providing a penalty and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 15.5, end of Section 15.5, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 797, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 797 to Assembly Bill 280.
Assemblywoman Carlton moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 797 to Assembly Bill 280. Remarks?
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. It makes an appropriation in the amount of $40,320 for the cost of replacement signage and mounting hardware for restrooms in the state parks to comply with the provisions of the bill.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 797 to Assembly Bill 280 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 341, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, an act relating to cannabis, providing for the licensure and regulation of the Cannabis Compliance Board of Cannabis Consumption Lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the licensure of cannabis consumption lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the operation of retail cannabis consumption lounges and independent cannabis consumption lounges, requiring the board to adopt regulations establishing certain fees, revising provisions relating to certain cannabis projects, revising provisions relating to the consumption of cannabis in a public place, establishing provisions relating to a civil liability of a person who serves, sells, or furnishes cannabis or cannabis products to another person, revising provisions relating to the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products, exempting the cannabis consumption lounge from certain provisions, prohibiting a person from maintaining a place for the purpose of unlawfully selling, giving away, or using any controlled substance, and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 36.5, end of Section 36.5, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 773, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 773 to Assembly Bill 341.
Assemblywoman Carlton moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 773 to Assembly Bill 341. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recognizing that all members have a copy of this amendment on their desk and it's fairly extensive, I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. Into Section 12.4, this bill prohibits the board, with certain exceptions, from issuing more than 20 adult-use cannabis establishment licenses for an independent cannabis consumption lounge. However, if on or before June 30th of 2022, the board issues 20 such licenses, Section 12.4, authorizing the board to issue additional licenses so long as the total number of adult-use cannabis establishment licenses for the independent cannabis consumption lounges does not at any time exceed the number of the adult-use cannabis establishment licenses for a retail cannabis consumption lounge issued by the board. Section 12.4 also requires that at least 10 of the first 20 adult-use cannabis establishment licenses for an independent cannabis consumption lounge issued by the board be issued to a social equity applicants and addresses other matters properly relating thereto.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 773 to Assembly Bill 341 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 382, introduced by Assemblyman Watts et al., an act relating to student education loans, providing for the licensing and regulation of student loan servicers by the Commission of Financial Institutions, requiring student loan servicers to pay certain assessments and fees, authorizing and requiring the student loan ombudsman to perform certain acts, providing for the regulation of private education loans and private education lenders by the Commissioner, requiring the Commissioner to adopt certain regulations, establishing certain duties and prohibitions applicable to post-secondary educational institutions and post-secondary vocational institutions, requiring the Commission on Post-Secondary Education to adopt certain standards concerning post-secondary vocational institutions, prohibiting the Commission from delegating certain duties, providing penalty, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 67, end of Section 67, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
Amendment 802, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 802 to Assembly Bill 382.
Assemblywoman Carlton moved. Assembly adopt Amendment 802 to Assembly Bill 382. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It addresses changes in Section 54 on post-secondary education within the Employment Security Division of the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 802 to Assembly Bill 382 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's order general file.
Assembly Bill 486, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, and Act relating to property, defining certain terms, temporarily requiring a court to stay certain proceedings for eviction under certain circumstances where a tenant who has defaulted in the payment of rent has a pending application for rental assistance, establishing procedures relating to certain claims for wrongful eviction, temporarily expanding the circumstances under which a court is required to stay proceedings for eviction in order to facilitate alternative dispute resolution, requiring notices for certain proceedings for eviction to contain certain information, establishing temporary procedures relating to the provision of rental assistance to certain landlords of single-family residences with at least one tenant who has defaulted in the payment of rent, requiring the disbursement of certain federal money in certain circumstances relating to rental assistance, providing a civil penalty, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 780, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 780 to Assembly Bill 486.
Assemblywoman Carlton moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 780 to Assembly Bill 486. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Authorizing tenants, it delineates authorizing the tenants who are subject to the designated eviction proceedings to assert certain affirmative defenses relating to and establishing procedures relating to the temporary establishment procedures relating to the claims for wrongful eviction, requiring a court to stay designated eviction proceedings in order to facilitate alternative dispute resolutions, temporarily requiring notices of certain proceedings for eviction to contain certain information, and I think I'm going to stop there.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 780 to Assembly Bill 46 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill's order general file.
Mr. Speaker, order business 8.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bills 241, 262, 280, 492, and 486 be taken from their place in general file and be moved to the top of general file. And I believe we did 492. Yeah.
It's at the top. 492 is already at the top. Well, not anymore. You heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go back to order business 12.
Assembly Bill 241, introduced by Assemblywoman Gonzalez, an act relating to offenders establishing a credit against the sentence of certain offenders incarcerated during a state of emergency declared due to communicable or infectious disease, or commit a report containing a list of the offenders who have received such a credit and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
And amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 241?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 39 ayes, 2 nays, 1 absent. Excuse the bill having seen the constitutional majority. I declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 262, introduced by Assemblyman Anderson, et al., Senators Brooks and Lang, an act relating to education, prohibiting the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada from assessing registration fees, certain fees associated with course enrollment, and laboratory fees against certain students, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in the Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Any members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 262 is related to education and allowing our Native American students to attend any of our University of Nevada system schools, whether it is a community college or a four-year school. Order Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for your support in this bill in AB 262 for a number of reasons. But probably the most important is because of the land that we currently live on, that we are currently standing. That land belonged to the Native Americans. And this community has given so much to our state. Whether it is the land that many of our universities currently sit on, or even many of our beliefs and the number of individuals who have given so much from their Veterans Affairs to other areas. AB 262 will take away financial barriers from this community to be able to continue to enroll in education. More importantly, it's an investment in a community that is invested in us. I ask for your support of AB 262. Thank you.
Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 262?
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black has voted yes. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote on Assembly Bill
Yes.
262? Assemblywoman Dickman has voted yes.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent. Excuse the bill having seen the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 280, introduced by Assemblywomen Peters et al., an act relating to public restrooms requiring places of public accommodation, public buildings, and facilities owned by a public body, certain areas leased by or on behalf of a public body, and certain leased areas within a state park that provide a single-stall restroom to the public to make a single-stall restroom as inclusive and accessible as possible to a person of any gender identity or expression, revising provisions relating to the signage for such single-stall restrooms, requiring certain governmental entities to include in their building codes, or if applicable, adopt by ordinance a requirement that certain buildings and facilities used by the public that contain a single-stall restroom which is available to the public be as inclusive and accessible as possible to a person of any gender identity or expression, and prohibiting certain signage on such restrooms, providing penalty, making an appropriation, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 15.5, end of Section 15.5, end of bill.
All right, members to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 280?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 36 ayes, 5 nays, 1 absent. Excuse the bill having seen the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 486, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to property, defining certain terms temporarily, authorizing tenants subject to designated eviction proceedings to assert certain affirmative defenses relating to rental assistance, and establishing procedures relating thereto. Temporarily establishing procedures relating to claims for wrongful eviction, temporarily requiring a court-designated eviction a court to stay designated eviction proceedings in order to facilitate alternative dispute resolution, temporarily requiring notices for certain proceedings for eviction to contain certain information, establishing temporary procedures relating to the procedure of rental assistance to certain landlords of a single-family residences with at least one tenant who has defaulted in the payment of rent, requiring the disbursement of certain federal money in certain circumstances relating to rental assistance, providing a civil penalty, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll.
Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 486?
No.
Assemblywoman Black has voted no. Assemblywoman Dickman?
No.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted no.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 29 ayes, 12 nays, 1 absent. Excuse the Bill 17, the Constitutional Majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, under Order Business 8.
Order Business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 341 be taken from its place on general file and be placed to the top of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go back to Order Business 12.
Assembly Bill 341, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager. An act relating to cannabis, providing for the licensure and regulation by the Cannabis Compliance Board on cannabis consumption lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the licensure of cannabis consumption lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the operation of retail cannabis consumption lounges and independent cannabis consumption lounges, requiring the board to adopt regulations establishing certain fees, revising provisions relating to certain cannabis products, revising provisions relating to the consumption of cannabis in a public place, establishing provisions relating to the civil liability of a person who serves, sales, or furnishes cannabis or cannabis products to another person, revising provisions relating to the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products, exempting a cannabis consumption lounge from certain provisions, prohibiting a person from maintaining a place for the purpose of unlawfully selling, giving away, or using a controlled substance, and providing other matters pertaining thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 36.9, end of Section 36.9, end of bill.
Are any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll.
Assemblywoman Dickman, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 341?
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman has voted yes. Assemblywoman Black, how do you vote on Assembly Bill 341?
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black has voted yes.
Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 29 ayes, 12 nays, 1 absent. Excuse the Bill 17, the Constitutional Majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate. Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we're about done with our business for the day, so I'll move that all other Senate bills and Assembly bills on general file be taken from their place on general file and be placed onto general file for the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have, before we do that, I have an Order of Business 13. Order Business 13, there being no objection, speaking, the Chief Clerk will sign Senate Bill 21, the Senate Concurrent Resolutions 9 and 14. Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson. Oh, I guess Order Business 15. We do have some. Sorry. Assemblywoman Bilber Axelrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know it's kind of been a long session, long day. But today is National Wear Gray Day, recognizing Brain Tumor Awareness Month, which aims at bringing together the brain tumor community to help raise awareness and shine light on a patient population that is often overlooked. Although brain cancer is not as common as breast or lung cancer, the need for new, innovative ways to treat brain tumor patients has never been more critical. By raising awareness, we hope to bring attention to the critical need to find and provide effective treatment options for those impacted by brain tumor diagnosis. More than 138,000 U.S. patients and 1.4 million patients worldwide are struggling with malignant brain tumors. By the end of the year, another 256,000 will be diagnosed. The most common malignant brain tumor is glioblastoma multiforme. Let me try that again. Glioblastoma multiforme. 9 out of 10 will lose their battle with this disease within 5 years. The average 5-year survival of a patient with GBM is less than 5% and has shown no notable improvement in the last 3 decades. This diagnosis hit close to home when my attaché, Matthew, his mother, Cindy Fonken, was diagnosed with stage 4 GBM in late October 2019. This came as a surprise and was devastating to such a close and loving family. She succumbed to her visitor, as doctors referred to her inoperable tumor, only 2 months later after the diagnosis, in the arms of her husband of 37 years, Lee. She also is survived by her 2 sons, Matthew and Nicholas, and 5 grandchildren. To the brain tumor community, we know there's a lot going on in the world right now, but we understand your needs and they are not to be diminished. Your unwavering strength and courage inspire us to keep fighting for new treatments and a cure. We are in this together, and together we are tumor tough. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would be remiss if I didn't stand up today and as I get ready to head to the airport to my daughter's graduation, Rory, my daughter Rory, she's graduating from high school today. I know I don't look that old. And I'm so proud of her. And she's actually walking the same field that I walked 39 years ago. When I got my, or 29 years ago, I'm aging myself a little bit. So I just wanted to get up and congratulate her on such a great accomplishment, and the whole class of BCHS class of 2021. And I would just ask that you guys, maybe we can applaud all those graduates that are graduating this week, all over the state.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15?
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. At this moment, I just want to express some appreciation for the interns that I've had that have been working with me throughout the legislative session, and a special shout out to Bruno Landivar, who I know is in the building. Many of you have had the opportunity to meet him. He's interned with the Hispanic Legislative Caucus, and he's come even past his internship responsibilities to make sure that he could really understand the legislative process. So thank you, Bruno, Saida, and Brittany, for all the work that you've done for our team. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Remember how I thought we were done, but then some yellows walked in. So if we could hang tight for a moment, I believe we just need to get the amendments passed out, and then we can adopt the amendment and vote on the bill.
It's going to take about 5 minutes. So,
Mr. Speaker, if we could just have members, we'll go into recess, but just stand at ease, stay.
we'll stand at ease for about 5 minutes, folks.
Oh my God, whoa.
The Assembly will come back to order. We'll go back to order of business 15. Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order business 15.
Order business 15.
Mr. Speaker, I can't get a hold of my colleague from 31, but I know she would be missed if we didn't mention that today is Stephen Wood's birthday, or attaché, and he's done a great job for her, and I just want everybody to know and wish him happy birthday. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That other process is going to take a little bit longer, and so we're going to go ahead and do that tomorrow. Seeing no other business before us, I would move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Friday, May 28th, 2021 at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Commerce and Labor members, it's 1:43. We will be meeting at 2 p.m. in room 4100. Thank you.